right. Well, so as we wrapped up, there was actual breaking news after the trade deadline, and it was sad breaking news. Um, Longtime voice of the Dodgers, Vin Scully, has died. Um, so my memories of Vin, obviously, um, like when I think of Vin, the thing I think of is maybe I can find it and I can put it in this thing because I think I have a recording of it. So when the Cubs made the playoffs in '89 against the Giants, so that was in the news last week because of the Will
Will
Clark's
Clark.
jersey retirement and the whole cover your mouth fastball in thing. Vin did an incredible opening for Game One, which he wrote himself, and
Hmm.
it was great. And I always think of that when I think of Vin.
She stands alone on the corner of Clark and Addison, this dowager queen, dressed in basic black and pearls, 75 years old, proud head held high and not a hair out of place, awaiting yet another date with destiny, another time for Mr. Right. She dreams, as old ladies will, of men gone long ago. Joe Tinker, Johnny Evers, Frank Chance, and of those of recent vintage like her man Ernie and the Lion and sweet Billy Williams.
For Ronnie Santos, for Ernie Banks, and myself who performed here and couldn't bring that pennant home to Chicago fans, it's certainly a great pleasure for us to stand on the sideline and look out there and see the Chicago Cubs playing in the playoff game and, of course, playing in the World Series.
And she thinks wistfully of what might have been. And the pain is still fresh and new. And her eyes fill, her lips tremble, and she shakes her head ever so slightly. And then she sighs, pulls her shawl tightly around her frail shoulders and thinks, this time it will be better.
And then, you think of obviously like iconic moments, the Kirk Gibson home run and stuff like that. But what I remember about Vin most was when I first was living on my own. I moved into my grandpa's old house, and he had one of those big satellite dishes, which we'd had too at the farm when I grew up. And so I could watch all the baseball games. And unlike at home, I had that thing I could watch them in my bedroom, and I would throw a Dodger game on at night. And as I was falling asleep, Vin would just be doing the game. And there's a weird sensation because he's working alone that after a while, as you started to drift off, you felt like Vin was literally just talking to you. And then you get this weird feeling like there was at the time like a 70-year-old man in your bedroom. It got a little creepy, but I got over that. So what are your memories of Vin Scully?
Well, I had a chance to interview him once when I was working for Yahoo, and my colleague over there at Big League Stew, Kevin Kaduk, he informed me just now that Vin had died, and he sent me the link to the interview from like 12 years ago, and it was, it was as cool as you could imagine. And I don't think he broke any news or anything, but one of the things that he mentioned was that he liked to chew on or suck on Jolly Ranchers. So, because he didn't like to drink during games because it would cause him to go to the bathroom, and he was able to stay, in the booth and not have to run off too much to the bathroom because Jolly Ranchers kept him kept him moist, and again getting in a creepy area, but it kept his mouth moist, and he didn't have to drink so much during games, and I just thought that was really cool. I don't think that was the first time that he mentioned that, but it was the first time he mentioned it to me. So it was just really neat to meet Vin Scully, and he was in person just as he was on the air. A little less professional, a little more friendly, but still the same dude. And that's something I'll never forget. And probably watching him, my favorite memories of him probably would be like the '83 All-Star game, which was in Chicago, that I went to. But we also recorded on the V8 on the old VHS, and he did an amazing intro for that game with Joe Garagiola, and it was a big win for the American League after they lost so many in a row. And he was his poetic self at the height of it at that time, and that's always going to be my favorite Vin Scully game. And but I remember the same kinds of stuff that you do too with him. It's just we were lucky to have him all these years.
And there's a real art to working alone.
Yeah.
The thing he was great at was he would do this. And for the most part, he did it himself. And then later in life, he had somebody who would help him do research into this stuff. But he would have these stories about players that he could, because he's working by himself, he could fill a whole half inning or even go into the next half inning and just tell this long story about somebody.
Right.
And just seamlessly work it into the game that he was calling. It was always really, there were things you would learn about, not even just baseball. Sometimes he would put,
right.
If it was like if it was a holiday, he'd give you the history of the holiday
right.
while you were watching the game. He was forcing you to become educated against your will.
But he would tie it in somehow to what was going on in the game, or just generally with baseball. It wasn't non sequiturs or anything like that, but it was relevant to what you were watching in some form. And it's you're right. There's an art to making that, to executing that on TV, but he or his helper or whatever did a great job in a journalism sense, researching and telling us stuff either that other reporters hadn't gotten or hadn't widely gotten. Making these interesting stories about the players and the managers and the coaches and the other figures of the game that, no matter how original or, maybe secondary it was, took a lot of work and research to do to make happen. And then, TV, as much as we like to make fun of the people on TV, it is a hard job to not look like an idiot up there and know what you're talking about and communicating it. And he was about as good as anybody. And like a lot of times, and with the Dodgers a lot, especially later in life, he did work alone on the air too. He didn't have a color announcer. They had people that would take over for him in other innings, but he was by himself in his later years. And that's all you needed. He really didn't want anybody else talking if Vin Scully was going to be there, but he made it work.
Yeah, because I think he did it all through later, and because he for years they simulcast. He was the Dodger announcer, and then later in years he would do the first three would be simulcast, and then Charlie Steiner and Rick Monday would hop on and do innings 4 through whatever, and then Vin stopped traveling, so the radio team and the TV team were different for road games. But he I don't think he talked about it, but there was a profile about him during their heyday, probably in the 60s and 70s, where if you went to a Dodger game, it's just sitting in the stands, you would hear Vin because so many people had a transistor radio, just have it on, and so you could sit and watch the game at Dodger Stadium and hear him call it. Right,
as it was happening. Amazing.
Yeah. Well, that's too bad. He, baseball's hanging on a little more than other sports. There are fewer and fewer of those kind of unique voices.
Right.
And so when you get one, it's nice to, it's sad that they're gone. Obviously he retired, but, it's also rare to have somebody who's kind of had the universal approval rating of Vin Scully. You didn't hear a lot of people going, I hate that SOB Vin Scully. So.
Right.
All right. Well, yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, and we got a chance to give our 2 cents.
Yes.
We're so done with New Year, New You. This year, it's more you on Bumble. More of you shamelessly sending playlists, especially that one filled with show tunes. More of you finding Geminis because you know you always like them. More of you dating with intention because you know what you want. And you know what? We love that for you. Someone else will too. Be more you this year and find them on Bumble.
¿Hablas español?
Sprichst du Deutsch?
If you've heard that sound from Babbel before, I bet you do. Babbel is the science-backed language learning app that actually works. With quick 10-minute lessons handcrafted by over 200 language experts, Babbel gets you on your way to speaking a new language in just a few weeks. With over 16 million subscriptions sold and a 20-day money-back guarantee, just start speaking another language with Babbel. Right now, up to 55% off your Babbel subscription at babbel.com/Spotify podcast. Spelled BABBEL.com/Spotify podcast. Rules and restrictions may apply.
This episode is brought to you by Allstate. Some people just know they could save hundreds on car insurance by checking Allstate first. Like you know to check the date of the big game first before you accidentally buy tickets on your 20th wedding anniversary and have to spend the next 20 years of your marriage making up for it. Yeah, checking first is smart. So check Allstate first for a quote that could save you hundreds. You're in good hands with Allstate. Savings vary. Terms apply. Allstate Fire and Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Northbrook, Illinois.
Welcome back to another exciting edition of the Pointless Exercise podcast. Recording this on trade deadline day, and there were some big trades around the league, and the Cubs put the dead in deadline by apparently thinking the deadline was at like 2:30 until they just stopped making any trades, and they still have some guys that we pretty much were sure they were going to trade. So anyway, with me to break it all down is Bally MLB senior writer David Brown. David, how are things going?
Hi, Andy. Things are going great. I had prepared or thought I was going to prepare for more Cubs action than we got.
I think we all thought there was going to be more Cubs action than we got. So obviously the big news. Well, there were two. I think there were probably two bits of big news, and we get this first one a little bit later. Juan Soto actually getting traded. And the other one was Willson Contreras not getting traded, which makes no sense. Absolutely none. The Cubs literally haven't had serious contract extension talks with him since 2017. Is it 2018 this year? No, it's 2022. He's 2 months away from being a free agent. And by not trading him for anything, all they'll get, if they give him a qualifying offer, I could just see the Cubs being like, oh, no, we're worried he might sign it, is they'll get a good old-fashioned sandwich pick. Pick somewhere in probably the high 30s for Willson Contreras. And I knew it as the trade deadline was creeping towards 5 o'clock Central, and the Cubs still hadn't made a trade. And it wasn't even the fact that they hadn't traded him yet. It's the fact that there weren't like any, this team is close, or there was no rumors about anything. I thought, oh, this is bad. I knew that there would be like some Cub-friendly writers who would immediately try to position this as, you know what, this is actually really smart. Because that comp pick, not only is it an extra draft pick, but then you're going to get more money in your draft pool next year. To which I simply reply, if you can't trade the best catcher in the National League and get more than the value of like the 38th pick in the draft, you probably have the wrong job.
You make a good point. I mean, that is a rationalization to beat them all, and it's like, literally better than nothing. Getting better than nothing for him, but. Maybe they're going to pick and open up those contract negotiations for the first time in 6 years.
You know what, Wilson? We've always loved you, and we don't feel like we're stuck with you. We want to keep you here for another 5 or 6 years. Suddenly, it was. The whole thing has just been dumb. Like, he's literally the best catcher they have had since Gabby Hartnett. He's
in the
30.
Goldman.
He's 30 years old. He's not 35 years old. He's 30 years old. In an era now where you have a DH, and he's served as the DH quite a bit this year, and he's actually good at it. He also was a late convert to catcher. Like, he didn't start catching until he was in his, 20, he was 22 or 23 when he started catching. So he doesn't have, all these miles on it. The one thing that he's always gotten criticized for, even though he's a lot better at it than he used to be, is framing pitches. And if baseball goes to the old robot strike zone, there will be no pitch framing. It's like it's all of this stuff has been like, kind of converging to make him more valuable. And the Cubs every year are just like, that's nice. That's fine. So it was completely defensible for them to have like just tried to sign him. And maybe had they tried to sign him and it just turned out that like they just, they're making him competitive offers and him and his agent are like, nah, I'm worth a lot more than that. Then maybe you can kind of see the, then maybe if they didn't trade him, you'd think, all right, maybe they're just going to reopen it. But they haven't. They haven't tried to sign him. They haven't tried to keep him. And we know they're not going to keep him. We know that. As much as you can know anything that hasn't happened yet, we know they're not going to try to keep him. And so they effectively got the bare minimum for him, which is a comp pick now. I'm not happy about it. I don't know if you could tell. I think I'm hiding it rather.
Yeah, you seem perturbed, yeah. Rightly so. You mentioned that, I think you mentioned, or maybe you were talking off the air, it all comes together. It all sort of goes together. That, we weren't hearing any talk. It's like you sort of knew when the deadline was coming that nothing was going to happen because we hadn't heard that anything was close.
Yeah.
Before today and the last couple of days, do we remember hearing possible destinations? Like where did we think maybe he would go?
The two places that he was connected to the most, the Mets a lot,
right,
and the Padres a little bit. So obviously there's the theory that the Cubs had been talking to the Padres about a big trade, a trade that would have Willson Contreras and Ian Happ and at least one of the relievers in it, and then the Cubs would get, would actually get a top prospect in return, and maybe they would do the thing that everybody's been clamoring for, all the big baseball big brains, take Eric Hosmer, and then you'll get an extra prospect if you eat that salary. And that's very likely if that was the trade that the Cubs thought they had the most momentum on. All of a sudden, the last few days, it was, well, the Padres, if they can get Juan Soto, why wouldn't you want to get Juan Soto? And AJ Preller and his mussed-up hair just spent a week only thinking about Juan Soto. Because if Cub fans were in this weird situation this morning where obviously the three teams most connected to Soto were the Padres, the Dodgers, and the Cardinals. And no Cub fan wanted to see Juan Soto end up on the Cardinals.
Right.
And so then there was the thought about, okay, well, if we need maybe the Padres, they seem like they're the most likely team to just pay whatever to get him. So we probably need the Padres to do that, but that might mean then that Willson has to go somewhere else because they're going to run out of prospects to trade. And that could be what happened. But if you're a general manager, a president of baseball, whatever, you probably, if you have what is probably the second best position player to trade, you probably should have a plan B somewhere. You probably shouldn't be sitting there on deadline day going, oh no, we're screwed. The one place I thought we could trade him, we can't trade him to now. You had to have, there had to be somebody out there that wanted to give you more than some pick in the 30s a year from now. But so there wasn't.
We have the Juan Soto trade screwing up the return for a potential return for Contreras.
Yeah, and maybe we have to. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, yeah. On the other coast, we have the Mets, who almost ran in place. I mean, they did a couple deals, including one with the Cubs.
Yes.
It's not like they didn't know the number. They could get Michael Givens to New York, but I guess Willson Contreras. I don't know. There were a bunch of other trades and scenarios where I saw good Mets fans complaining about GM Billy Epler just being, having his hand in the chicken switch and unwilling to make any large deals. So not willing to move a lot of their minor league stock. So, and I heard that was the case for maybe Soto and other players that, they weren't interested in doing that, especially because Contreras was going to be a free agent.
Yeah. I think it's industry-wide that teams overvalue their prospects.
Yeah.
Like the last thing they ever want to do is trade a young, controllable, i.e., cheap player and have him bust out somewhere else. But that's stupid. Because you can look at the just all you got to do is go back 5 years and look at the top 50 prospects, and you'll laugh yourself through a big hunk of that list. All these guys that everybody thought were going to be good. That you're like, I remember that guy. I don't remember this guy. You have prospects for two reasons. You have them to come up and play on your team, and you have them to trade to get other players to play on your team. And if you're a team like the Mets, who has done, spent the whole offseason just throwing money around trying to get guys to win a World Series, and you have this really good team, and then you somehow get paralyzed at the trade deadline. And there was some people were wondering if the fact that they traded Pete Crow Armstrong to the Cubs last year when he was hurt, and it turns out that Pete might actually be really good, that made them even more gun-shy to send another prospect to the Cubs. And if that's how you're operating, you're not very good at your job.
What was that? Was that the Baez? That was Baez, right?
That was Javi, yeah. And other than the early when the Mets were flipping everybody off, and Steve Cohen wanted to cut Javi played really well for them.
He did.
So they actually did, and they chose not to keep him. And they knew that coming in, they weren't going to keep him. So that trade worked for them.
Right.
Plus, as good as Pete has been this year with his weird oversized name on his shirt, he's in South Bend. He's at Class A.
Right. It's going to be a while.
There's a lot of guys who've been really good in Class. The Cubs know. The Cubs have had lots of guys who were really good in Class A, and then you were like, oh, that guy never did anything.
Right.
But yeah, it's easy for teams to paralyze themselves. The other, I was really hoping for an Ian Happ trade, because I just don't think Ian Happ's that good.
Right.
And I have a feeling that the reason Ian Happ wasn't traded was because there are a lot of general managers who just agree with me. And you're like, he's versatile. He's a switch hitter, and you used to pretend that he could play second base, which he really couldn't, and he can kind of play center, but not very well. And he's supposedly been great in left. He robbed Paul DeJong, Grey Poupon of a home run today. DeJong, yeah, like he's in Sticks. Paul DeJong. Is he one of those DeYoungs? They were from Palos Park, I think.
Different spelling.
Oh. I am just of the feeling that if you take a 100-game sample of an outfielder, you probably are not really getting that good of a picture of their defensive aptitude. You can trick the defensive stats for half a season. I kind of think that's what he's doing. He's a corner outfielder who has 9 home runs and has a .436 slug.
Right.
And it's I think a lot of teams he's pretty good, but why would I give you something for him? I could shake a tree. And a reasonable facsimile. I mean, the Yankees traded for basically the pure left-handed version of him when they got Andrew Benintendi. He's actually a better player than Ian because he's a better athlete than Ian is. So that really didn't surprise me. I wanted them to trade him because I feel like he's literally right now, this is most valuable he'll ever be. And they'll never get, whatever they got offered today, they'll never even get that again. Because you'd get him for 2 months plus next year. He's cheap. He's having a good year. We've seen him have good stretches before and then just completely fall off the map to where it looks like he's never seen a baseball before. Mm-hmm. And I just kind of had a feeling that I think maybe their best way of trading him was to package him. And then when the other guys they couldn't package, then they're just, we want to keep him all along. The other thing is the Cubs have been really frustrating this year in that they put together a bad team on purpose. They knew they weren't going to win. Right. They knew this. You do not assemble this team if you think you're going to win. But they have just enough guys who they should know aren't going to be around when they're good playing, that the few young players they have that you'd like to look at, they're not getting very much playing time.
Yeah.
And left field was going to be a spot where Clint, don't call me Clint, Jackson Frazier could come up and wander around in for the last 2 months, and you could give him one more shot, give him the kind of the extended playing time that he hasn't really ever had, except for the time he got hurt, and you could make a decision on him. Like, okay, he proved he can't play, so we can move on, or maybe he can. Or the great Narciso Crook, who I just like his name. I wanted to see Narciso play. They don't give consistent time to Nelson Velasquez, who actually might be good. So you got another guy out there. Cap's going to play. Ross is going to play Hap in left field every day, and we know what Ian Happ is, and he's just going to be there. And it's like, okay, great. So it was just a bad day all around because if they had a plan, they literally had one plan. And when they couldn't follow that one plan, then they were just paralyzed. They didn't know what to do. And that's not great. And it was strange because yesterday they made a trade that I actually thought, holy crap, I think they might have a plan. And that was when they traded a bullpen guy that nobody expected they were going to trade. They traded the great Scott Effross to the Yankees, a guy who's actually really good and is relatively young. He's 28. But he's got 5 years of control, precious.
Yeah, but a rookie, 28-year-old rookie, basically.
And the Yankees were certainly, and they got a better return than you typically would get for a middle reliever because he's good and he's young and he's controllable. And the Yankees were like, okay, take our 4th-rated prospect, Hayden. What's his name? I'll learn it if he ever makes it to the big leagues. Wisniewski?
Oh, I think he's gonna. Yeah. Hold on.
That seemed like, okay, that's the kind of trade that's the kind of trade that they should be making. It's like, oh, there it is, they figured it out. And then a day later, you're like, that was blind squirrel and a nut, I think, yesterday. So, I mean, they kind of did that with the David Robertson trade. They got the guy with the 2 B's in his name. I've been very excited about this, so I can't remember anybody's. Another thing, kind of one of the Phillies' top 10 prospects, starting pitcher.
Ben Brown, no relation.
Ben Brown, yes, that's right, your nephew. And then they traded Michael Givens to the Mets, and they got Saul Gonzalez. Is he Gonzalez?
That's right.
And that was it. That was the haul for all that. For a season of crap that we've put up with, their whole plan was we're gonna get these guys, and we're gonna sign some veterans that we're gonna flip, and we're gonna cash in Willson and maybe Hap if he, And at the end of the day, they made 5 trades. One of them was Dixon Machado, so that doesn't even count. And they got maybe 3 guys for all that.
Rickson, Ivy, Dixon, Machado.
And they did get in the Chris Martin trade. They got Zach McKinstry, who
can't be a real name,
right? So, who someone compared to a left-handed David Bodie.
Oh, wow.
And I think Zach McKinstry should sue whoever that is for defamation. And they still have the right-handed David Bodie.
They do,
which that's not doing anybody any good. So. We're gonna be the Cub fans are gonna be saying as soon as the offseason starts, you're still not gonna have a catcher. You're just gonna be opening more holes on the team. We can't wait. It's gonna be very exciting. But speaking of exciting, as much as they don't deserve it because of what they did when they tried to ruin my childhood 38 years ago. For all 9 of them, it must be a pretty exciting day to be a San Diego Padres fan.
Yes.
The trade to get Juan Soto, they put a lot of their top prospects in it. And it's still you still look at it and you're like, yeah, you would do that every day.
Right.
Because you can't lose a Juan Soto trade if you're the one who gets Juan Soto. You automatically won the trade because he's going to be the best player in the trade. And that's kind of the whole idea about this. So.
By a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, even if all those guys turn out to be come within 80% or 90% of what you think their potential is, he's still better.
Right.
It is kind of a sad state, though, of where we are in baseball now, that there were people like, well, see, the reason it's smart for the Padres is they could keep him for a couple of years and then they could trade him and give prospects back. Like, no, stop thinking that way. I mean, yeah, we've seen the Padres do it before, and the Marlins are great at it. But it's like, no, that should not be they should not be encouraged to do that. And somebody's like, well, they're going to have to. There's no way they could pay him. They're already paying Machado. They're already paying Fernando Tatis, and that's a small market. It's like, the thing everybody's complaining about. There's no money in baseball. That's why all these billionaires buy teams and keep them. It's not a matter of if they can afford them. They may choose not to, but it's their own choice. If they want to, they absolutely can keep them all. So,
right.
But they weren't done. They also traded for the suddenly resurgent Chris Drury, utility player from the Reds, who has 20-some home runs already. And they did something else, I think. I don't remember. It's all a blur.
I think Brandon Drury, or was it?
What did I call him?
Chris?
Chris Drury? Oh, that's the old hockey player, right?
Yes.
Yeah, Brandon Drury. Who's on my fantasy team. I like him so much, I renamed him.
Right. Well, they got Hader a couple days ago, or yesterday. And they got Josh Bell in the Soto trade. That's another good hitter.
And they got rid of... So, how'd you like to be Luke Voigt? I don't think Eric Hosmer is going to be on Luke Voigt's Christmas list. So the original trade had Eric Hosmer in it, going back to the Nats, and the Padres were going to... You saw some reports they were going to pick up almost all his money, and other reports they were going to pick up most of it. But he had a 10-team limited no trade, and the Nats were on it, and he said, I want to go there. And so when the trade finally went through, Luke Voigt, who thought he was going to be playing first base with all these other guys around him, tomorrow will be playing first base for the Nationals. Like, thanks a lot, Eric, you son of a bitch. And Hosmer got traded to the Red Sox.
Which is kind of a weird place, but a much better situation, like you said, than the Nats.
Yeah. Well, maybe they think he's like Doug Mankiewicz 2.0.
Right.
But his contract, for as much money is left on it, it drops. It's $13 million a year the next 3 years, which in baseball, 2022 and beyond, is not that much money.
Well, he's probably not worth it, but he's not terribly overpaid either.
Yeah. He was, his contract was front-loaded. He was overpaid when he was making, like this year he's making $20 million. He's not a $20 million player.
Right.
But you can also look at it as the Red Sox could easily move him if they eat like half the money. Find another team who's not on his list and basically say, hey, how'd you like to have a good glove first baseman for $6.5 million? Somebody's going to say, sure. Probably be the Cubs. Sure, we can block. We got some guys in the minors. Let's block them with him. That'll be fun.
Right.
So the Padres made those big deals, and then the Dodgers went up to the Vineyards and got one of the Gallo brothers, Ernest Julio. No, I got Joey.
Right. We can't fix Cody Bellinger, but we're going to try and fix Joey Gallo.
Yeah. At the same, you just fix them at the same time.
Right.
Sure
in the same at bat, in the same batter's box. I read part of a Q&A that Gallo had done, I want to say with Lindsay Adler of The Athletic, and it was really sad. She asked him, do you get, guff from fans, when you go out?
Yeah.
I don't go out.
He said, I don't go outside.
That
must be fun.
And it's like, well, I a couple guys from the Royals reached out and said, they had sympathy for me, saying, don't worry about it. Don't let the booing get you down. And he's like, well, that made me feel bad because it made me think that I'm a problem. I'm the problem. But I mean, he hasn't been good, but Yankee fans have not let him forget it. Yeah. So we'll see if the Dodgers can rescue his bat and emotions.
I don't even know where are they going to play him? The Dodgers they're weird to me because I think in my mind I can picture their lineup, but it always feels like they have like 14 guys that they're playing at once. It's like, right. Where do they put everybody?
They do run through a lot of guys with injuries, and like Max Muncy has that elbow deal, so they're not sure how much they can rely on him. So much that they put Mookie Betts at second base sometimes, and so they do a lot of weird stuff. Justin Turner's hurt, so I don't know. They have they had to move the great Jake Lamb to the Blue Jays, so that's where they have a prospect, a third baseman, Miguel Vargas, who's supposedly pretty good. So
and then when they traded McKinstry to the Cubs, they called up I forget Outman's first name.
James.
And he didn't make any outs, man.
No, man, he hasn't.
Almost hit for the cycle in his debut. So, yeah.
If Gallo continues to sink, they can, I guess, put him back out there.
Yeah. But for the Cub fans, the Dodgers are operating their franchise the way the Cubs were promised to, which was we're a big market. They've got their own TV network, although they're smart. They don't own the TV network. They just get the money. That's how it's supposed to work. And
whether people in LA can see it or not.
Right. They don't care. Half the town can't watch their games. It's like, well, you got a radio, don't you?
Right.
Better come
Vin Scully's on there, isn't he?
Better come to the park. It's like maybe it's like a Bill Wirtz strategy. They're just better at blaming it on somebody else.
Right.
But they somehow managed to have a top payroll and a team that contends for pennants every year, and their farm system churns out talent. They never seem to have to do now we're going to have to suck for 5 years while we reload the farm system. It's like, is that when you have a high payroll, you don't have any draft picks? Is that how it works? No, we have them. We just were really bad at them for a long time. So we're going to make the fans pay for our ineptitude by stripping down the product they pay more money for than any other fans in baseball. They can watch this crap for 5 years, and then maybe we'll be good again. Oh, fun.
And the Dodgers, they don't have, they haven't gotten a lot of high draft picks either. They draft, somehow they figured out how to get a lot of good prospects, despite the fact that they don't have high draft picks. Yeah. So,
I think it was Keith Law pointed out, not surprisingly, the Rays and Dodgers are run similarly. However, one is run with a lot more money than the other one is. But he said one of the things they both have is they have more scouts and they have more analytic people than every other team does.
Hint, hint.
Yes, they put their money where their mouth is, and the Cubs invest all their money in the magic cameras that they have in the pitch lab, and that fixes everybody. That's all you need is we'll get you in front of the magic camera. And we'll fix you, and it'll be great. Okay, that's exciting. So the Dodgers were already ridiculously good, and then decided they would get better. And the Padres decided, all right, if we're ever going to beat the frickin' Dodgers, we have to load up, and that's what we're going to do. And there's the Giants sitting up there going, let's trade Darren Ruff for J.D. Davis. That'll fix our problems. So the Giants, I don't know if you know this, they won 107 games last year. Maybe you heard that. And the Buster Posey retired, and then they let Chris Bryant wander off to Denver, which has been fine because he keeps falling down. Now he's got his plantar, his fasciitis, and he's back on the injured list again. But they didn't replace either guy. And then other guys got hurt, like Brandon Belt. All the Brandons got hurt. Brandon Belt, Brandon Crawford. Is it Brandon Yastrzemski? No, it's Mike. He's not hurt. He's playing.
It might as well be.
And they just kind of went, well, we're not really going to sell, but this isn't going to happen for us this year. So, then there was our buddies, the Cardinals, who I have a feeling this is overstated, but I'm still going to enjoy it anyway. Who apparently, you kept seeing reported that, well, the Cardinals are in it, but they refused to give Dylan Carlson to get Juan Soto, and that might be the deal breaker. So for the rest of his career, Dylan Carlson will be the guy that kept the Cardinals from getting Juan Soto. It might not be true at all, but I'm going to enjoy it.
And they traded Harrison Bader. I was kind of surprised at that.
Yeah, as a Cub fan, he's just so annoying. It's not enough to ship him out of the league. I was hoping, are there any Martian colonies that play baseball? They could send him there. This stupid perm and he wears that neck thing all the time. It's like it's 85 degrees out. Your neck is not going to get cold.
I'm going to watch. What am I going to watch? For All Mankind. They're on Mars now, and we'll see if there's baseball on Mars. And I'll get back to you.
Yes, I also watched that show.
Whether you're ordering wings for the game, whipping up a 7-layer dip, or ordering pizza, there's something about football that makes you want to eat. And this football season, Uber Eats has the best deals on game day food. No matter what you're craving, from 2-for-1 pizza to buy one, get one wings, Uber Eats will be dropping new deals each week, all season long. Uber Eats, official on-demand delivery partner of the NFL. Order now. Terms and conditions apply. See app for details.
This episode is brought to you by Allstate. Some people just know they could save hundreds on car insurance by checking Allstate first. Like to check the date of the big game first before you accidentally buy tickets on your 20th wedding anniversary and have to spend the next 20 years of your marriage making up for it. Yeah, checking first is smart. So check Allstate first for a quote that could save you hundreds. You're in good hands with Allstate. Savings vary. Terms apply. Allstate Fire and Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Northbrook, Illinois.
Yeah, like they traded for the Yankees. Seemed to all of a sudden at the end of the deadline, like Cashman is like, we need to get rid of Jordan Montgomery for some reason.
Well, they got Frankie Montas. I know they have other. They have other parts. I think they're looking into the future and saying, well, maybe we'll get Severino back or somebody like that, and a couple other people, so there won't be enough starts for Jordan Montgomery. Yeah. I guess. But they had been intending to play left field, and they get rid of Gallo. They still have Aaron Hicks, and they have Aaron Judge, and they have Aaron Stanton, and they have Aaron Ruth.
You got all the Aarons. Well, and Bader's hurt and isn't going to be back till September.
Yeah.
So it seemed odd.
He's got the plantar fasciitis too.
Yeah.
It's going around.
Oh, it's like monkeypox. Yeah, and then the Cardinals traded their backup catcher, right? Because Yadi's coming back. Yadi's return is imminent, or maybe happened today. I don't know.
He caught Wainwright whenever Wainwright last threw this week.
Oh, so he's back. I thought he was still getting kicked out of semi-pro basketball games in Puerto Rico. I don't know if you saw the video of that. So he owns a basketball team in Puerto Rico, and when he got hurt, he just went home. The guy who they all talk about, he's the team leader. He's valuable. He's a baseball intellect is so sharp. You just think, okay, well, when he's hurt, I'm sure he's like still in the catcher's meetings and stuff. He's like, no, he's in Puerto Rico. He owns a basketball team. He's at the game, and he has his own jersey. So he's the owner, but he's wearing a jersey. And he didn't like a call on the court, and he ran out on the court, and he basically did the Tim Anderson thing. He was bumping the ref and got thrown out of the game in Puerto Rico. It's like, all right, well, that's where he is. That's good. I'm glad he's back. The Cardinals need his 62 OPS plus plunked right in the middle of that lineup. That'll be good. He had to come back. He had to come back because he's got to come to the last game at Wrigley so that the Cubs can give him one of those scoreboard tiles.
Right.
Talk about the most
But occasionally-
unoriginal. They've given one to everybody. They're probably at some point they're not going to be able to
They're gonna
post
run
the
out?
scores. Yeah.
Right.
God, I hope nobody's. Wait a minute. We gave Hap one for no reason. Nobody better score 8 runs today because we don't have any 8s. We're all out. Tell him he's got to give up a 2-run homer. We don't have an 8. That shouldn't be a problem with this guy.
Yeah, you mentioned how he just kind of booked it for home when he got hurt. I was reading a story in the New York Times about the potential for an international draft, and Puerto Rican guys. That sounds weird when I put it that way. Puerto Rican players they have to be drafted already.
Yep.
But I guess the writer asked a bunch of players about the potential for an international draft, and the quote on Yadier Molina was that he didn't really have any interest in replying about the story. So I thought it was strange that he had no opinion on that, and I maybe link it a little bit to what you're saying about this great teammate leaving for Puerto Rico in the middle of the baseball season. It's like, all right, I guess his wealth of baseball knowledge does have some limits, I guess.
Maybe he thought that they were talking about they want to have a draft for his semi-pro basketball league. Oh, I don't have any opinion on that.
I'm going to be suspended. I can't talk about that.
I can't talk about
maybe that's it.
So the last, there's always trades that creep in under the, like 5 o'clock comes and then you wait because there's always trades. The most
5:42.
The most famous example of that for Cub fans was in 2004 when the Cubs had a game that ended right about the time of the end of the trade deadline, and Dusty walks into the post game and does chat, and they said, "Well, are you disappointed that you guys didn't make any moves?" He's like, "Oh, who says we didn't make any moves?" And a few minutes later, they came out and announced the complicated the Nomar Garcia-Parra trade, which I had seen it, but my mom called me and goes, "Did you see the Cubs got no Rod?" Yeah, I did. I saw that.
No Rod.
It was cute that she was, she just combined A-Rod and Nomar, and she got no Rod.
No Rod.
And then 2019, it looked like the Cubs hadn't made any moves, and we found out that they had gotten Nick Castellanos. The first one today that popped up after the deadline was all over was Whit Merrifield being traded, and the sweetest irony of it all, he got traded to the Blue Jays. The guy who couldn't go play in Toronto, was it last week, 2 weeks ago, because he's not vaccinated, but then said, well, if I get traded to a contender, maybe I get the vaccine. Gets traded to Canada. So apparently he'll be getting the jab. Now, but so they can get vaccinated and just like walk right in? You don't have to wait like X amount of days? Can you just get vaccinated that day? Can they poke you right at the airport and send you on in?
I honestly don't know. It's a good question. I don't know the answer. I think, as I recall, I don't know what the rule is, but when us normal people were getting vaccinated, it supposedly took a few days for you to become, to get your defenses up.
Yep.
So I don't know that they care in the case of this player. Is he fully vaccinated, 10 seconds after getting the shot? No, but on paper, it works. So I think they'll accept him in Canada, I would imagine.
Yeah, do they just give him his 2 shots and his booster all at once? There you go.
Right.
Jab, jab. All right. You might feel like shit for a while. Oh.
Right.
Told you stuff doesn't work. It also, though, didn't seem like a fit with the Blue Jays. Can he play center field? Because isn't George Springer? That's apparently why the Blue Jays were interested in Ian Happ, was because Springer's injured and they thought they might have to play Happ in center. We've seen that. You don't want to do that, but go get it.
He hasn't done it a lot, but it has happened that he's played center. The Royals have Michael Taylor, who's good out there, won a Gold Glove, in fact.
Yeah.
So they haven't needed it to happen. Theoretically, it could. I think he's really, although I don't know what the numbers are this year, he had been really good at second. He'd been okay in right and whatever in center. He's got speed. So I suppose that between second base, right field, and center field, they could find time for him.
Maybe they could put Teoscar in center for 5 games so that I can play him there on my fantasy team.
Oh, yeah. Why don't they think like that?
I'll call Justin Trudeau and ask.
I thought you were going to say Ross Atkins, but you went right for the top.
Doesn't he run everything in Canada?
That's how communism works. Yes,
that's right. Right to the czar. So the Brewers traded away Josh Hader. I don't know if you saw did you see the Devin Williams locker room reaction to that trade?
I didn't.
Did not seem happy. He was like, "Hey, you're going to be the closer." He's just kind of like, kind of gave I thought we were trying to win. Why?
Yeah, right.
We gave away, we had me and him at the end of the game, and other than that 1 week when Josh gave up home runs to everybody, it pretty much worked. And he's just kind of looking like, what are we doing?
There is an 8th inning too.
Yeah. Well, but they addressed that because they made a trade today with the Giants for Trevor Rosenthal.
Oh, man.
Who played for the Giants. Yeah, you know how many career games he played for the Giants? He signed earlier this year.
I believe none.
None. Yes, he played 0. Some Giants fan made a sarcastic thank you, like one of those thank you graphics with his stats. 0 innings, 0 appearances, 0 strikeouts. So they got him, so that'll fix that. It just seems really odd every trade deadline. It seems like it comes and goes, and the Brewers, who have this offense that doesn't do anything, just kind of seem cool with it. Like last year, early in the year, they got Willy Adames, and that helped. But that's pretty much it. They're kind of like, yeah, we don't score. That's our thing.
Andrew McCutcheon's all right.
Why mess with a good thing? We don't score. That'll be all right. Rowdy Tellez is going to hit 30 homers and drive in 38 runs, and we're cool with that. So, but they are in first place, so you can't argue with success, I guess.
I thought the Cardinals won. Who's in first? Who's on first? Yeah. Well. Yeah, that's right.
Phillies made some moves. They got the aforementioned David Robertson, who they recently paid $23 million to over 3 years to pitch 7 times.
Right.
So they're
going to get that money's worth now.
They asked him what the difference was. Like, do you feel different? Yeah, he said, my elbow doesn't hurt this time. It doesn't work out. He was smart enough. He got he had a $100,000 relocation clause in his contract. I mean, I don't know. I mean, it seems like you could get a mover for less than $100,000, but he should read the fine print because the Cubs negotiated it. It could very well be, we'll pay up to, but you have to turn in the receipts. Here's $5,800. Where's the rest of it? Well, you didn't spend it. You can't have the rest of it. We're giving away money around here. They also got Noah Syndergaard. And I don't know if you saw Noah, probably on his way to the plane, tweeted out a video of himself from a few years ago stealing the Philly Fanatics 4-wheeler. And he wrote, this could be awkward. that was funny.
He's a clever man.
So the Twins traded for, what did we decide this guy says his name? Tyler Mahle?
Mahalo.
Mahalo? Oh, that's
Mahalo.
right.
Welcome to Hawaii.
Tyler Mahalo. So they got him.
He's actually, he's
pretty
at
good.
the bottom of the good pitchers. Like the past 3 years or so, I looked it up, and he's like 15th on Fangraphs in WAR. A little bit on Joe Musgrove, to throw a name out, since over the past 3 seasons. So he's good. He doesn't seem like he's that much better than like Jake Odorizzi, but he probably is.
Yeah, and think about how bad the Reds were with him and Luis Castillo, and I think how bad they're going to be now without them.
And all the other players.
As somebody else pointed out, if the Cubs, if part of their hope was to get a nice high draft pick, by keeping Willson and Ian, and the Reds just completely bottoming out, and the Nats, it's like, well, you're not catching them. You're going to accidentally win a few games, so you're not getting into the top. What is it, 3?
Well, there's lottery now. Who knows what could happen? David Stern could come, and there could be a frozen envelope, and you don't know.
Right. Rob Manfred would never rig anything. He's a man of all kinds of stuff. So the Orioles, there were people confused by the Orioles because they're kind of hanging around at the nether regions. That doesn't sound good. For the third wild card spot, and they traded Trey Mancini.
Don't say nether regions around Trey Mancini.
That's true. And today they traded actor comedian George Lopez, who apparently was closing for them. I didn't know that. He seems old to be a baseball player, but whatever.
He's been around.
I looked at it and said, "Look, I think Trey's a great story, and he's a good player. But he's not that good. His stat. You look at his. It's like, okay, Trey's that they're not really going to miss that. It did seem odd to trade your closer if you think you're playing for something. But we saw a similar situation last year when the Mariners traded Kendall Graveman to the Astros, and somebody asked Jerry Dipoto, and he's basically like, well, yeah, he's got great stats now. In other words, we weren't going to press our luck. He's going to keep doing this for the next 2 months. So we traded him. But I guess...
Yeah, and that trade was a lot like the Hader trade. They got back a decent relief pitcher in that deal, and they get like the Padres sent Taylor Rogers to the so for Hader. So it's kind of like, oh, this guy's sort of like Josh Hader. This guy's sort of like Kendall Graveman. It didn't exactly work out, but
yeah, the Brewers thing. Rogers will become the 8th inning guy, and then Devin, presumably, and Williams will become the 9th inning guy. So, you're not even replacing like the poor man's version of Josh Hader. He's not even replacing Josh Hader. He's replacing Devin Williams, who's replacing Josh Hader. I'm overcomplicating things. But
yeah,
that's why
it's a little bit of a shell game.
The Brewers also got Matt Bush, who I'll be honest, I saw him the other day. I was flipping around and I saw a Rangers game. I'm like, oh, he still pitches for the Rangers. Now he doesn't. He pitches for the Brewers now, which could be awkward.
What a life.
He probably shouldn't be pitching for the Brewers.
Well,
that's fine.
Probably not, no.
The Cardinals' first trade today was they got old friend Jose Quintana, who's had a pretty decent year for the Pirates. But he was bad last year for the Angels, and he was bad at the end for the Cubs. So good luck with that. We had the interesting thing last night where Red Sox and Astros are playing each other, and the Astros trade for the Red Sox catcher, Christian Vasquez. And if you see him getting interviewed on the field by the Red Sox, he just found out, and he's standing there on the field, and the Red Sox reporters are on him, and one of the Red Sox PR guys comes and grabs him, drags him off the field. And then the Red Sox were bitching. He just sat in he was just in the batters meeting. He knows how he knows how we're going to pitch them all. It's like, yeah, guys, I got to tell you that I think it was I think it's in ball 4 where Bouton's making fun of those meetings. Mm-hmm. He said everyone is, don't throw this guy a first pitch fastball. He goes, they say that 9 times and then you go out. It's like, the meeting is not that useful, guys. It's all right. Let me guess. First ball, fastball hitter? Yeah. All right. I think it's one of those. So is there anybody that you think is any contender who is appreciably better than they were, say, 2 days ago, and any contender who is didn't do themselves any favors?
Well, do the White Sox count as a contender?
To you,
They didn't
no.
do.
We know
They did not do themselves anything almost, except for Jake Diekman.
Jake Diekman. So, like, that's a team that you would think, if somebody's going to trade for Whit Merrifield, would have thought maybe it'd been the White Sox.
Huh. Now that you mention it, but I mean, I just had not heard. You know, you were talking again. We were talking about what the word on the street seemed to be with Willson Contreras. There seemed to be no words on the street for the White Sox at all. There's nothing brewing.
No, the only buzz about him was everybody was having fun retweeting Tony LaRussa falling asleep at the beginning of the game yesterday.
And there was the you tried to trade for Shohei Ohtani.
That's right. And actually, the White Sox talk guys at NBC Sports actually made a graphic.
They know they're losing them to another channel, so they can make fun of them. I think that's what's going on. Yeah, so and Jake Diekman is he's a guy. So he helps a little bit, I guess. But, so they didn't do themselves any favors. But, they're suddenly going to start playing better baseball here in the last 2 months of the season for some reason.
Yep.
I don't see how that's what they think, or that's what they hope. I like what the Braves did. They got Raisel Iglesias, and, they traded one of the Will Smiths for Jake Odorizzi, who's not great, but I think Will Smith might be getting toward the end a little bit. That was good. And who else did they have? Well, they added Robbie Grossman, who's really unsexy sounding, but they did a good job last year adding a bunch of outfielders and needed to. And so, I think they're probably a little better than they were. The White Sox didn't help themselves. The Brewers kind of backtracked a little bit. The Cardinals got a little better, I think, or at least in better position to do a pennant race. I don't know if the Royals the Royals aren't a contender, but I don't know if they got anything for Whit Merrifield. I mean, they got a couple of decent secondary prospects, but the Royals are a million miles away anyway. So, let me think here. I mean, we ask ourselves, can the Padres win the World Series now? I think maybe. Juan Soto, presumably Fernando Tatis, Manny Machado. That's a pretty fun 3/9 of a lineup. We'll see how Yu Darvish pitches and some of the other changes that they made. In the postseason, the absolutely most talented team very often doesn't win. Doesn't necessarily have to win. So I think that they certainly have put themselves in position to actually go ahead and do it and win. So the Dodgers surprised me a little bit that their moves were so minor. I like generally the moves that the Twins made. Seattle getting Luis Castillo, I think he was the best starting pitcher on the market. So that's good. The Mets didn't really – it's curious, that they didn't add Contreras at catcher or I kind of like the move, the Vogelbach move. He was hitting better than his results were showing. Maybe they'll get lucky with Darren Ruff too. So I don't know. I don't know if that answers your question. But.
Darren Ruff likes to hit homers against the Dodgers. That might come in handy in the playoffs
right.
at some point. But that was a good. That to your point. I mean, the most talented team does not always win the World Series. The Dodgers have won through all this, and it was the pandemic year. They won the only World Series they won is in the 60-game pseudo season. But if you over the last since like 2014, the last 9 seasons, they're probably the most talented team in baseball, and they've got one World Series to show for it.
Right.
I mean, there was a garbage can involved in one of those that may have influenced that a little bit, but yeah. So in the National League, if the Giants don't get their act together, which I can't imagine they're going to, there's not a lot of drama coming. As the seeding is basically what they're playing for,
right?
Because you want to have one of the 2 best records of a division winner, so you can sit out the first 3 days. But
will Philadelphia get in instead of the second place team in the Central? That's probably the question as far as the playoffs go. The one big unanswered question. You figure the Mets or Atlanta will get in, and it'll come down to, will Philadelphia be better than the Cardinals or the Brewers? Figuring that the Dodgers and San Diego will get into. Obviously, the Dodgers will.
There was there was a rumor yesterday that maybe the Phillies would be interested in Ian Happ, and Cub fan is like, God, can you imagine? Wait till they have to trot out an outfield of Schwarber, Happ, and Castellanos. And I was thinking, I guarantee you that happened, and I found it. It happened once, and so it must have been 2019, and it was a September game in Philly that the Cubs lost 11-1. I was like, yeah, they tried it. It didn't work. Don't do that. A lot of balls just rolling to the wall everywhere. And as somebody else pointed out, that was during a stretch of games where Joe was mixing and matching in the outfield so much that at the beginning of a game, Castellanos ran out to right field and did his whole, waved at the crowd and did all the thing, and turned around. Jason Hayward was standing there, and Jason was just pointing to left field. Like, Nick, you're not playing right field today. You're in left field. So he had to run through the grass over to his other spot. I guarantee you he knew where he was in the batting order, though. Yes. Yeah, so the National League wild card. There's for 3 spots. There's 4 teams, and the Cardinals and Phillies were tied. The Cardinals are beating the Cubs at the moment. That's probably over by now. The Giants are 4 out, and that's about it. The Marlins are 8.5. So there's your drama there. The American League, though, for the last wild card spot, actually Seattle's only a game up for the second one. So from the second wild card spot down, you've got Seattle, Tampa, Cleveland, Baltimore, the White Sox, and the Red Sox, all within 2 games.
Right.
So there's where your drama will be late in the season.
And basically none of those teams going for it with deadline deals. Not very much.
Yeah, the whole White Sox thing was curious. It really felt like they certainly would have been justifiable for them to have tried to just shake it up. They've got so many pieces that just don't quite fit. They don't really have a spot for Andrew Vaughn, and if they certainly don't have a spot for Gavin Sheets and Andrew Vaughn, do you trade one of those guys and try to fill something else? They've gotten very little out of second base, and Yoan Moncada has not had a good year again at third. Everybody seems to be hurt. Eloy has started to hit, and then they had video of him taking ground balls at third base, just jacking around before the game. It's like you just know he's going to hurt himself.
Right.
So why is he doing that? So
they should probably put up more nets. Just in case.
Get him they should put him in a beekeeper outfit.
Right.
So he's surrounded by net, and just have him play out there. That is certainly part of their problem, right? Is they have, they've got so many guys who really can't play a position. Eloy's not a good left fielder. They don't really have a right fielder. And
They have 2 first basemen.
And they don't.
A bunch of people who need to play DH, and not including even Grandal, who might be cooked and has to play DH sometimes because he can't always catch.
Yeah.
It's not a good mix.
Well, and they were talking about.
Yeah, but just Moncada hasn't really been the same in one way or another ever since he got COVID.
Yep.
I don't know if that's still going on, if that's a problem or that's lingering, but Jake Berger was actually okay. I don't know about defensively, but he was hitting well at third base. And Tim Anderson hasn't been quite the same dude this year either. And you mentioned second base, which has just been a hellhole. Luis Robert has a mysterious, they activated him. He's got some kind of blurred vision.
Yeah.
I'm not sure from what. I don't remember when that started or why.
He was perhaps staring at an eclipse.
Right.
No, I was going to say about Andrew Vaughn. LaRussa gave some tortured explanation about how he needs to build up the stamina in his legs to be able to play the outfield. And he was literally talking about being able to stand out there. It's like, what? Just put a feigning couch out there for him then. He can just he can lay down between pitches. It's like he's like 25 years old. And he should be able to stand in the outfield for 3 hours. Because you don't stand there for 3 hours. You stand there for maybe half of it, and you get to run in and sit down. So,
right.
Maybe they should just have him play the outfield closest to the dugout. So in some parks he plays left, some parks he plays right. You don't want him to have to run all the way across the field. Just whatever's closest. And if you want,
I don't want to call it ingenious, but that's
Andrew, if you want to just go, if you want to go sit in the bullpen when you think you might not come up, just do that. Maybe we'll ask the other team if you just, in the old days players just left their gloves on the field. Maybe he could just lay in the grass.
Or sit on a glove.
He just promised to get out of the way if the ball's hit anywhere near you. That'd be good.
Does he need one of those sticks that, like the sticks that turn into a little stool? I don't know what those are called, but would they let him do that?
Maybe they could build something into his pants, where if he starts to squat, the little chair legs come out, and he can just kind of, this is nice.
Like a Bracabella, but for the butt.
I'm really worried about him. And he apparently was the guy that the Cubs really wanted last year and couldn't get, and got Nick Madrigal instead. Because he is, he projects to be a really good hitter. Yeah, he is a good hitter. But it's like, I have a feeling the Cubs would have got about as many games out of him as they've gotten out of Nick, which is not too many.
I'm pretty sure that in certain other scenarios, you mentioned shaking up the White Sox, that they would have changed managers if he wasn't who he was.
Yep. No, I don't think there's any doubt about that. But I'm sure they don't even. I'll guarantee nobody even goes to ask Jerry.
Right.
This is not a, hey Jerry, do you think maybe we got to think about this? This is a don't even. There's already the talk. Sox fans are already like, do we already miss the window? And maybe they did.
It seems like a smaller window. Maybe there is a window, but
no. And maybe could be great. Maybe they're just not as good as everybody thought they were. As
I've thought in my own mind, what would happen if they did fire LaRussa? I think to myself, is that even the problem? I know it's a problem, but I don't know how much it matters. No. Because of all these things, I don't think that Eloy being Eloy has anything to do with LaRussa, and Robert being what's going on with him has anything to do with that, or the fact that there's nowhere. It's not like, LaRussa's making some strange decisions and mistakes, but no manager can fix what, as you mentioned, these problems are with not having a position for so many players.
Yeah. Well, maybe Tony should teach Andrew Vaughn how to play right field. Why doesn't he teach him how to do that? What are we paying him all this money for? He should teach him. Just go out there, hit him fungos you can't because he gets exhausted. That's the problem. That's why his legs are tired.
Him and LaRussa, they both get exhausted because LaRussa's 87 years old.
Is Tony here? Yeah, he's asleep in his SUV. It's parked in right field.
On the warning track.
He got here early to work with Vaughn. Is Vaughn here? Yes, he's laying in the grass in front of the SUV. We're getting a lot done this morning. Things are going to be great. Well, so it was an eventful trade deadline. It was
a lot of events.
It was 2 years in a row now for Cub fans. Last year there was the kick in the balls that all the key members of the World Series team were all shipped out within a matter of like 3 days. Rizzo went first, and then Javi and Bryant went right at the deadline. And it was funny. There were already people who were like, "Oh, I just can't take it again." It's like there's only one guy left, guys.
Right.
If you've already come to terms that Wilson's leaving, it shouldn't be that sad. And then he didn't leave, so we got to get mad instead of upset, because then it's like, all right, what are we doing? If you
and confused.
But I'm sure there's a great plan in place, and they're following it, and it's all going to work out just fine.
I can't wait to see where it goes.
Well, fans of other teams will be gearing up and getting ready for exciting playoff races, and Cub fans will be just playing out the string. Something that we got used to as youth and thought maybe we wouldn't have to do all the time again, but it's back. So that's fun. All right, but I'm sure we'll have more stuff to talk about.
Sounds good, Andy.
All right. Well, thanks.
All right. Thank you.
Many of us have herpes.